It was Memorial Day weekend in Pensacola, Florida. The humid air hung heavy over the dockside ceremony where the Navy had gathered to honor fallen SEAL teams. Veterans stood proud in their dress blues, civilians clapped respectfully, and American flags fluttered in the gentle Gulf breeze. Among the crowd stood a woman who shouldn't have been there. She positioned herself near the front of the platform, her khaki SEAL uniform crisp and regulation perfect. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a tight military braid beneath her 8-point cover. Everything about her bearing screamed authenticity. The way she stood, the fit of her combat boots, the unconscious military posture. This wasn't stolen valor or costume play. She wore the uniform like she had earned every thread through blood and sacrifice. But there was one critical problem. No one knew who she was. Retired Master Chief Blake Morrison, a weathered SEAL veteran from Team 6, narrowed his eyes from the VIP section. Something felt fundamentally wrong. He'd survived too many classified operations not to recognize when something was seriously off. A woman in a SEAL uniform wasn't impossible. The community had evolved, but it wasn't common, and certainly not unannounced at an official ceremony. Morrison trusted his instincts. They'd kept him alive through 3 combat deployments and countless black operations. Right now, those instincts were screaming warnings. He approached her with the measured stride of a man who had faced enemies across the globe. The woman, Victoria Kane, though he didn't know that yet, didn't flinch as the imposing Master Chief stopped within arm's reach. "Morning," he said, his voice carrying 30 years of command authority. "Morning, Chief," she replied. Her voice was steady, respectful, but underneath lay a quiet confidence that suggested she wasn't intimidated by rank or reputation. Morrison cut straight to the point. "Which team?" She met his gaze without wavering. "Classified. I'm here to pay respects to the fallen." "Let me see your military ID." Victoria shook her head calmly. "Can't help you there, Chief." That's when Morrison noticed the ink beneath her sleeve. A tattoo, small, detailed, unmistakably military. It was the SEAL trident, but not the standard version. This one was modified, laced with barely visible runic symbols along the anchor shaft. Ancient markings that most would mistake for decoration. Morrison had seen that exact design only once before, during a classified briefing in the early 2000s. It was whispered about among Tier 1 operators, supposedly reserved for a team that officially never existed. His pulse quickened. He turned to nearby security. "Get base security here now, and call NCIS." Within minutes, military police surrounded the platform. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd as cell phone cameras began recording. Victoria raised her hands calmly, showing no resistance or surprise. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for impersonating a United States Navy SEAL," an officer announced loudly. She didn't argue or protest. As they cuffed her, she made one request that would change everything. "Tell Admiral Marcus Sullivan that Victoria Kane says hello." The officer hesitated. "Admiral Sullivan retired 8 years ago." Victoria smiled for the first time. "Exactly. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story resonates with you, consider subscribing for more tales of unrecognized heroes." At the military holding facility, Victoria was processed through standard booking. No ID, no personal effects. When they ran her prints, results showed a partial match to Victoria Marie Kane, allegedly killed in Afghanistan in 2014. But the match was only 67% conclusive, and the file was heavily redacted. She was placed in a sterile interrogation room. Gray walls, flickering lights, designed to break down resistance. Victoria sat calmly, hands folded, as if she'd done this before. Which she had, just never on American soil. 2 NCIS agents entered. The older one was stern and experienced, the younger eager with his laptop ready. "Name?" the senior agent barked. "You already know it," Victoria replied with unsettling calm. He slammed a folder on the table. "Where did you get SEAL intelligence? Who trained you? How did you get that uniform?" Victoria studied him analytically. "Is this how you interrogate everyone who honors our fallen heroes?" The younger agent, Richardson, leaned forward. "You mentioned Admiral Sullivan. Why contact a retired flag officer?" "Because he'll know the tattoo is authentic." "You expect us to believe—" "I expect nothing," Victoria interrupted smoothly. "You're dealing with something beyond your clearance level." The senior agent left abruptly. Victoria leaned toward Richardson, her voice dropping to a whisper. Do yourself a favor. Look up Project Phantom. It's buried in black files that officially don't exist. Richardson blinked nervously. That doesn't exist in our system. Victoria's smile was grim. Exactly. An hour passed in silence. Then the door opened slowly, deliberately. A man entered with unmistakable military bearing despite civilian clothes, silver hair, sharp eyes, commanding presence. Victoria stood immediately. Admiral Sullivan? He studied her carefully, then examined her tattoo. His expression shifted as he recognized the modified design with its cryptic symbols. That tattoo is completely authentic, he told the agents quietly. Only 6 operators in military history ever wore that version. They were buried deeper than state secrets. He nodded toward Victoria. Remove those cuffs immediately. The restraints snapped open. Richardson looked stunned. Sir, she was arrested for impersonation. Sullivan fixed him with an icy stare. You don't have clearance for what you've stumbled into. He gestured to Victoria. In the mid-2000s, we created 6 operators for off-the-books missions. Deep cover, global reach, no records anywhere. They existed only as ghosts. But there's nothing in our database. There isn't supposed to be. You don't document phantoms. Sullivan looked at Victoria. Why surface now? Victoria's composure cracked slightly. Someone's systematically eliminating phantom operatives. When I saw Marcus Torres's obituary, I knew it wasn't accidental. She produced a USB drive. Encrypted kill orders targeting all former phantom operatives. My name's scheduled for today. Sullivan took the drive personally. Come with me. In a secure briefing room, Sullivan connected the USB to an isolated laptop. Files loaded, names, locations, mission summaries, and most disturbing, termination orders in sanitized language, but unmistakable intent. Richardson read aloud. Elimination Directive. Kane, Victoria. Priority. Critical. Sullivan rubbed his temples. Who authorized these? Victoria pointed to the signature. D. Cross. Richardson searched databases. Daniel Cross, former CIA, presumed killed in Syria, 2016. Victoria shook her head. Either Cross survived, or someone's using his credentials. He was Phantom's original handler, knew every protocol, every weakness. Sullivan sat back heavily. If he's cleaning house, none of you are safe. That's why I surfaced, Victoria said. The arrest, the uniform, I needed military acknowledgement. I couldn't keep running. Sullivan studied her. What do you need? Let me disappear again. When Cross knows I'm alive, he'll come hunting. That's our opportunity. Sullivan hesitated. We just found you. You didn't find me. You remembered I existed. Sullivan extended his hand. Be careful, Raven. Always am. By midnight, Victoria had vanished with forged credentials courtesy of Sullivan's contacts. From a rooftop across the street, a scarred man watched her disappear. He pressed his earpiece. Target confirmed. Raven's alive. A gravelly voice replied. Then finish what we started. Victoria studied her reflection in the hotel mirror. Scars mapped her body. Knife wounds, shrapnel burns, and the modified trident tattoo with its runic symbols representing stealth, vengeance, and silence. Only 6 operators had ever worn that design, all officially dead except her. From her 7th floor window, she spotted surveillance, a man in a gray SUV who'd been sitting too long. The metallic glint under his jacket confirmed it. They'd found her. Meanwhile, Admiral Sullivan accessed buried files in Arlington. The Phantom Directive was frustratingly thin, just enough to prove existence without operational details. Only call signs remained visible. Raven, Shadow, Phantom, Reaper, Ghost, Echo. Only Victoria survived. The others died in accidents that now looked like systematic executions. Victoria made her move, exiting through the fire escape to photograph the surveillance operative. She uploaded the image to an encrypted veteran network. The response came quickly. Carlos Martinez, former Delta Force, now Blackwater Dynamics, connected to Daniel Cross. Cross. She'd watched him die in Syria. confirmed his death herself. If he was alive, none of them were safe. Sullivan decrypted Victoria's USB data, revealing the true scope. These weren't just kill orders. They were mission debriefs showing unauthorized objectives. Journalists, activists, business leaders who'd threatened the wrong interests. Phantom had been manipulated into cleaning up political messes. "They used us as a cleanup crew," Sullivan muttered, realizing the full betrayal. Victoria returned to find her hotel room breached. On her bed lay a black envelope with Cross's seal. Inside, a photo of her and Sullivan with red circles around their faces, and a message. "We finish what we started." She crushed the note. If Cross wanted war, she'd give him one he'd never forget. That night, Victoria reached an abandoned SEAL facility outside Panama City. Hidden beneath false panels was her original Phantom kit. Custom weapons, encrypted communications, emergency IDs, and a photo of her 6-person team. She touched each face gently. Shadow, Phantom, Reaper, Ghost, Echo. All gone, erased by betrayal from within their own government. She activated her communications device. "Operator R02 requesting support. Cross is alive, drawing him out." "Copy, Raven. We're listening." Across the country, Daniel Cross stood before monitors displaying Victoria's face. Older, scarred, but very much alive despite official records claiming otherwise. "She's active," he told his aide. "Time to complete the sterilization protocol." He retrieved a briefcase-sized device. "Activate Scorpion." "Sir, that's not authorized for domestic operations." "Neither was Phantom. Deploy it anyway." Victoria's warehouse safehouse became her fortress. Under flickering lights, she laid out her gear and accessed a hidden hard drive containing data she wasn't supposed to have. Mission logs, communications, GPS tracking from former teammates. Each file showed the same pattern. Contact offering legitimate military service. Lure to specific location. Accidental death. She was supposed to be next. The hidden drive revealed the full scope of betrayal. Each of her teammates had received identical messages before their deaths. Shadow. House fire, after meeting about reinstatement. Phantom. Car accident en route to Pentagon interview. Reaper. Climbing accident during supposed vacation. Ghost. Drug overdose, despite never using substances. Echo. Missing, presumed dead after responding to recall order. Victoria realized the systematic nature of the eliminations. Cross wasn't just cleaning house. He was erasing evidence of Phantom's most sensitive operations. Outside, headlights appeared. 6 vehicles positioning for coordinated assault. Cross's Scorpion team had arrived sooner than expected. Victoria activated the warehouse's hidden EMP defenses, designed to disable electronic equipment. The building became her hunting ground. The first operative breached silently. Victoria waited until 3 entered, then triggered the EMP. Night vision failed, radios died, confidence evaporated. She disabled 2 with precise, non-lethal shots, took down the 3rd with a pressure point strike. 3 more entered, but found their equipment useless in the electromagnetic dead zone. "Fall back!" one called desperately. But Victoria was already moving, dropping from the rafters to neutralize 2 more. The last escaped, but not before she relieved him of his radio. "Cross, this is Raven. We need to talk." His familiar voice crackled back. "Victoria, always the most resourceful." "We never worked for you, Cross. We worked for America." "Same thing. You eliminated threats to national security. The fact that some were American citizens is irrelevant." "Not anymore. The world's about to learn what Phantom really did." "You won't live long enough to expose anything." Victoria smiled grimly. "I already have." That night, encrypted files appeared on servers worldwide. Journalists and watchdog groups received anonymous packages documenting Phantom's complete operational history. Everything Cross thought buried was now beyond his control. But Victoria wasn't finished. She infiltrated Cross's corporate headquarters in Arlington, a gleaming tower housing Blackwater Dynamics under multiple shell companies. She bypassed security with practiced efficiency, reaching his 42nd floor office. Cross waited behind his desk, hands visible. "I wondered when you'd finally come," he said calmly. "I'm here to finish this." Victoria replied, weapon trained on him. Kill me? I'm just one piece of a larger machine. Maybe, but you're the piece that betrayed us. Betrayed you? I created you. Phantom was my design. You were my weapons, and weapons don't choose their targets. We weren't weapons. We were soldiers serving our country. Victoria stepped closer. Who ordered Phantom's elimination? Cross studied her with cold satisfaction. You want the complete truth? Cabinet-level authorization. They decided you knew too much about America's actual foreign policy. The revelation hit like a physical blow, but Victoria didn't waver. Then they're next, she said with steel resolve. You can't fight the entire government, Victoria. Watch me. But instead of shooting, Victoria placed a device on his desk, a live streaming transmitter, broadcasting their conversation to every major news network simultaneously. Cross's eyes widened. You just destroyed both of us. I destroyed the lies. The truth will protect others. She left the original team photo on his desk. Now you can remember all of us. Then she rappelled from the window into the night. Within hours, Cross's confession trended globally. Officials scrambled with denials, but the damage was irreversible. Cross vanished into federal custody that night, his fate never disclosed. Victoria had never sought revenge, only truth. And truth, once released, could never be recaptured. Weeks later, congressional hearings began. Some officials resigned quietly, others were transferred. But the deepest conspirators remained protected by classification and plausible deniability. Victoria returned to a remote Maine coastline, to a weathered cabin that once served as Phantom training facility. She rebuilt it as a memorial, carving 6 names into granite: Shadow, Phantom, Reaper, Ghost, Echo, Raven. She stored her weapons beneath the floorboards, not because she was done fighting, but because she'd earned the right to choose her battles. One morning, Marcus Torres appeared at her door, alive, older, but alert as ever. Heard you might be dead, he smiled. Greatly exaggerated. They sat on her porch, watching sunrise over the Atlantic. Finally, Marcus spoke. What now? Victoria gazed at the horizon. Now we make sure it never happens again. We train the next generation to ask questions, think independently, serve the country, not those who claim to speak for it. And if they come again? Victoria's smile was sharp as winter wind. Then they'll discover Phantom isn't dead. It just learned to fight without being seen. The investigation continued for months. Cross's recorded confession led to a congressional inquiry that, while heavily classified, resulted in significant reforms to oversight of black operations. New protocols were established requiring multiple levels of authorization and congressional notification for any operation involving American personnel. Admiral Sullivan was quietly promoted to head a new oversight committee, ensuring that future special operations would face proper scrutiny. The surviving Phantom operatives, Victoria and Marcus, were offered full reinstatement with honors, which they politely declined. They had found something more valuable than recognition: purpose. The cabin in Maine became an unofficial training ground for a new kind of operative. Not soldiers who followed orders blindly, but critical thinkers who understood the difference between serving their country and serving those who temporarily held power within it. 6 months after Cross's exposure, Victoria received an unexpected visitor. Agent Richardson, the young NCIS investigator who had initially interrogated her, stood nervously on her porch, carrying a manila folder. Ms. Kane, he said formally, I wanted to personally deliver this. Inside the folder was a congressional commendation, signed by both the Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority Leader. But more importantly, it contained something she hadn't expected: letters from families of the fallen Phantom operatives. Marcus Torres' sister had written, "Thank you for giving my brother's death meaning. For 20 months I believed he died in an accident. Knowing he died serving his country, even in ways I'll never fully understand, brings me peace." Similar letters came from the families of Ghost, Reaper, Echo, and Phantom, each expressing gratitude not for the revelation of how their loved ones died, but for the knowledge that their sacrifices had prevented others from facing the same betrayal. Victoria read each letter twice, then placed them in a wooden box beside the team photograph. These families deserved more than government denials and cover stories. They deserved the truth, even when that truth was painful. "There's something else," Richardson said hesitantly. "3 more operatives have come forward. Different programs, similar situations. They're asking for your help." Victoria looked out at the ocean, where Marcus was teaching a small group of former special operations personnel the fundamentals of ethical decision-making under pressure. The next generation was already learning to question orders that felt wrong, to distinguish between national security and political convenience. "Send them here," she said simply. "But make sure they understand. We're not training rebels. We're training patriots who know the difference between serving their country and serving its mistakes." Richardson nodded and turned to leave, but paused. "Ms. Kane, that first day, when you were arrested, did you know it would lead to all this?" Victoria smiled, remembering the moment she had chosen to surface at that Memorial Day ceremony. "I knew the truth needed to come out. I just didn't know how many people were ready to hear it." After Richardson left, Victoria walked to the memorial stone and traced the carved names with her finger. Shadow, Phantom, Reaper, Ghost, Echo. And now, carved below them, a new inscription. "They served in darkness so others could walk in light." The evening news that night carried a story about military reform and increased oversight of classified operations. Victoria's name was never mentioned. She remained officially dead in all records, but her impact was undeniable. Marcus joined her on the porch as the sun set over the Atlantic. "Any regrets?" he asked. Victoria considered the question carefully. "About exposing the truth? Never. About the friends we lost? Every day. But regret doesn't bring them back. Making sure their deaths meant something, that's what keeps me going." A young woman approached from the training area, Sarah Chen, a former Marine intelligence officer who had recently joined their unofficial academy after discovering her unit had been used to target American journalists overseas. "Ma'am," Sarah said respectfully, "we've completed the ethics scenario you designed. Every participant chose to question the orders rather than follow them blindly." Victoria nodded approvingly. "Good. Remember, the hardest battles aren't against foreign enemies. They're against the temptation to stop thinking, to stop questioning, to assume that authority is always right." That night, Victoria stood on the rocky shore watching the lighthouse beam sweep across the water. Each pulse of light reminded her of the choice every service member faced: illuminate the truth, or remain comfortable in darkness. She had chosen light, even when it meant exposing shadows within her own government. The cost had been enormous. Friends lost, trust shattered, a life forever changed. But the alternative, silence in the face of betrayal, would have been a different kind of death. Victoria often stood on the rocky shore, watching ships pass on the horizon, knowing that somewhere in the world, young men and women were being recruited for missions they might never fully understand. But now, thanks to the truth she had fought to expose, they would have protections her generation never possessed. The memorial stone bore 6 names, but it represented something larger: the price of blind obedience and the power of speaking truth to authority, no matter how high that authority reached. That evening, Victoria lit a single candle in her window facing the ocean. Not for mourning or revenge, but for remembrance. The kind that ensures the fallen are never forgotten, and their sacrifices are never repeated. Far away, in secure offices deep within the Pentagon, new protocols were being written. The Phantom Doctrine, as it came to be known, established that no American service member could be eliminated without due process, regardless of what they might know or whom they might threaten. Victoria Kane had done more than survive her government's betrayal. She had ensured that future generations would never face the same choice between silence and survival. In the end, the Ghost had become the guardian, watching over those who served in shadows, making sure they were never forgotten and never again abandoned by those they swore to protect. The truth, once unleashed, had indeed set them free.